Welcome back to Major League Sorare. I am your one of your hosts, TrippinB, aka Daniel, and I'm here with my man CryptoKicks, aka Schuyler. And Schuyler, what's up, man? Welcome back into the show. We just threw the banner up post transfer deadline. It's the window is slammed shut, as they like to say, and guys can still come into MLS, but they need to be free agents now because the window for them to leave their other clubs, whether they be coming from Europe or some other situation, is closed. I think it's still open in Turkey. You know, some questions about what's going on in Portugal, but for the most part, MLS teams have brought in all the reinforcements that they plan to bring in from Europe or Mexico or Argentina, or South America, as the case may be. And we're here to talk about it. Schuyler, how you doing today?
Doing well. Happy to be in the studio after being holed up in the cabin for a few days. We've had some ice in these parts of the country, so finally able to get out of the drive and move around a little bit. And
ice storm got him, folks.
So,
this guy's been holed up just trying to stay warm for 2 or 3 days in Tennessee.
That's right. Yep. Up here in Kentucky, but close.
Oh, close enough. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Hour and a half north of Nashville.
It's so. that Nashville scarf over your shoulder always makes me think you're in Nashville, and you spend a lot of time there, but you don't live there. So yeah,
That's right. But yeah, now I am thrilled to be out of the house, away from the kiddos. I love my family very much, but hey, man, after a few days of no school.
We could do a whole other podcast of parental truths about how I love my kid, but would be a great sideshow for us to do someday. But
yeah, so needless to say, happy to be here talking Major League Soccer, Sorare. So yeah, let's dive in. Yeah, the transfer window is interesting. We saw some pretty big moves into the league and out that will definitely affect kind of how we put our Sorare builds together. And I think we're starting to kind of see some of these lineups take shape and give us something to go off of when we're making moves on Sorare.
Yeah, and let's call it up, because one of the coolest things that is a big resource in this case, we love to share screen with our various resources that we find out there in the world, is the MLS transfer tracker. The transfer tracker is a beautiful thing. If you look, you can see you get everything that is officially signed, sealed, delivered goes through, and one pops out at me right here as I'm scrolling down here, Schuyler, and it's the one that we spent a bulk of the episode last week talking about, which was Sean Johnson. We predicted that he'd gone to the Raptors game. All the tea leaves were pointing towards him signing with TFC, moving on from New York City. And that happened, and it's official. And Sean Johnson is now a Toronto FC goalkeeper and looks strong to be the number one keeper there. Hopefully our viewers and listeners went out and bought him. What's your Sean Johnson situation?
I picked up a rare and a limited, I think right around our last episode. And I want to say there was 4 or 5 limiteds on the market that we kind of alluded to that I think Powell was holding on to. And not too long after the Sean John news broke, I noticed those were snapped up pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
May or may not have been a listener of the show, but I want to say that maybe we had somewhat of an effect there. But
yeah,
no, I think
for sure. Well, that's the thing, is you need to be listening to the show and you need to be reacting, to be perfectly blunt, because as I stole the great phrase from my friend Taco Slayer, buy the rumor, sell the news. Like, everyone knew for probably a good 2 weeks that Sean John was going to Toronto. It just wasn't official. But then it's not until that official word gets through to the mainstream news sources that all of a sudden the run on purchases goes. So I'm going to call up. We're looking at your 2 Sean Johns there that you got, and you can already see just from the Sorare data price tracker that his rare is up half 0.05, so 5% of an ETH, I guess you would call that, and it's going higher. Let's check out his actual floor price here in real life. It's up about 525. You got him at, where's CryptoKicks? You got him in that trade that we broke down, which was pretty good, and you got to be feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, I am. I felt a little more confident on that one than I did, say, the Yarborough and Pence situation, which we saw there too. I think we talked on that in detail, and I said, hey, let's hesitate a little bit on the Pence love, because you see it all the time where these deals are almost there, just don't get across the finish line, and then obviously Pence will still be useful in some form or fashion, but as far as we're concerned, trying to build some Major League Soccer lineups, then he's not going to be in the league this season. So that one
and
shook
we
out okay.
Just, if you're not familiar with that, what that case was that this guy Pence from the French league was set to come over and replace, pretty much he was designed as a signing to replace Yarbrough as the number one in Colorado Rapids. We talked about how Yarbrough never really makes you feel confident, and if you owned Yarbrough, the fire sale started on Yarbrough, right? And people were buying Pence. Let's update that for right now. And what happened was the transfer. I mean, it was all but done. He got the Tom Bogert. This is happening, being finalized, and all that. And then last minute, Bayern Leverkusen came through with an offer for Pence. And even though supposedly the rumor was Pence was leaving Stade Reims because he wanted to get first team action, he's trying to become the first team goalkeeper with Austria, his home nation. And so they were like, you need first team action, etc. And so he wanted a job where he'd start because he'd gone to the bench for Reims. And so now we're thinking he's going to come to Colorado and start. Instead, he goes to Bayern Leverkusen to be the backup to their very established goalkeeper, Hradecki, right? My pronunciation is probably, my guttural R there is probably really struggling. But Hradecki is the first goalkeeper in Leverkusen, and Pence went to go be his backup, Patty Pence. So I guess he figured staying in Europe was actually the better move than coming to America, even if first team football was not in the offing. But if we're looking, let's look at the price graph of the last month of both of these guys, and that might be instructive. What do you say?
Yeah, I think Yarbrough's price right now for somebody that's probably definitely going to start the season now that deal fell through. I think that's a pretty good price for a starting keeper. I would be a little cautious just because they are actively searching for his replacement.
Right, that's
Obviously,
what I'm worried about. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're picking him up to use, short-term use, beginning of the season. I think you could probably get some use out of him, then flip them or resell them, get them off your hands.
I mean, you're talking about in a month, his price has dropped 50% from 0.4 to 0.2.
Yeah,
it's a risk. If you
got
got real big stones, you might want to go buy yourself a Yarbrough and just hope that he keeps that job.
Maybe, but there's so many good keepers out there right now. Well, I say good. There's so many potential starting keepers in that price range, including your guy Cisniega from Charlotte.
Yeah, we talked about him last week, and he's stayed in the mix. His price has stayed low.
Yeah, there's still several keepers that we can throw into that pot and say which one do we want to pick. There's Guzan, there's Cisniega. Even Thomas Hassal's price has gotten to where I'm surprised because there were rumors that that Vancouver is bringing in another keeper. They haven't. The transfer deadline just passed, and so it looks like it's Hassal's job to lose going into the season. He was, I don't know, 0.3, 0.35 for a U23 keeper. So there's several.
I mean, like we said, the window is closed, and even though, he's down here. Most recent sale under 0.4. In fact, the most recent 6 sales are all under 0.4 for a U23 keeper is pretty nuts, especially when you consider U23 utility in the summer gets even scarcer because the Europe goes away. So it's interesting. It's a matter of what's your risk tolerance when you want to buy these guys who have had threats to their job come at them, and then they fended off those threats, right? Like for whatever reason, Patrick Pence, and his price dropped like a stone also, by the way, when he went to Leverkusen instead of Colorado. But I won't even bother to show that one. But what's your risk tolerance when like Yarbrough is almost, being heavily courted? They're out there actively saying we want a guy to replace Yarbrough. It's like, can I really invest in that? And Vancouver never seemed to trust Hassal. They were really slow to get him back from a finger injury last year, which felt weird to me because like didn't seem like it was that serious of an injury. So, and they've been actively out there looking for backups in the Asian leagues and to come over and challenge us all. So I don't know, man. Cisniega, should have the job. He played 75 minutes in a friendly, in Charlotte's first friendly of the year yesterday, actually, and did concede 2 goals. But he seems to be the first choice ahead of George Marks in Charlotte. So it's just really weird to me that his price is staying low. I don't know. In a time where goalies are just more important than ever, there's so many extra competitions. We got all these extra cap competitions. We've got the underdog where you didn't need to use the goalkeeper has gone away now and things like that. So like goalies are very important. And also they've sort of limited they've taken away the ability to use a rare keeper in super divisions. So it's like the goalie market is hot, but there's a few guys that the risk is there, but the price is low.
Yeah, yeah. I think as long as you're aware of the situations according to each individual keeper, I'm fine with making a small investment on a keeper. If it works out, then probably pays off, at least twofold, if not more. If it doesn't, then yeah, you're out a little bit. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's worth the risk as long as you're aware of the situation, as long as you're active and you kind of know when to hold and when to sell, the right time to sell. Like a guy like Yarborough, I'm not going to hold on to until the end of the season when his contract's expiring. Just not going to do it.
Right.
Maybe get some use out of him, hopefully win a card or two, and then try to sell them for at least what you got or more. And I think that's kind of how I approach it. I even just picked up, and I know you gave me a lot of crap for it. I picked up a Tim Melia super rare, which I've had my eye on for a while.
Why?
And it's just one of those situations where I need more super rare keepers in my deck. Just like you said, with the added competitions, then I started to realize I need more super rare keepers, active super rare keepers. And I'd say going into the season, he's probably 50-50 right now with Pulskamp to be Sporting Kansas City's starter. For me, I feel like they just signed a 2-year contract extension for Melia. That to me says we're bringing you in to give you 2 more years, and then Pulskamp is our future. That's just how I read it. And so for the price I got, it was probably close to 0.3 for a potential starting super rare keeper. I feel like I'm going to get at least a little bit of use out of him, even if it's not right off the bat to start the season. I feel like he's got that 2-year deal in hand. He's going to give me some production. So I was okay with that. And I think like going back to that, I think as long as you're aware of each individual keeper's situation, then I think it's fine to roll the dice a little bit, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So this is another one where the valuations at the time, you were willing to like give away a little bit of value at the time to get what you think is a higher upside. Chris Brady, I think that's an interesting call to dump him because there's some buzz around him, right? People think he might have a chance to become a starter at some point.
I think he's projected to be the starter for Fire this season,
which is crazy. Yeah,
and I've got.
They were like, Slanina's not young enough. We need to get an even younger goalkeeper.
Yeah, Brady is solid. Yeah, if you've seen Brady, he's a solid keeper. I think we'll start seeing him get integrated into the U.S. international scene before too long. So,
yeah, and his rare cards are trading very, very high. His rare cards are some of the more expensive goalkeepers in the league. But you decided to go for Timmy Meals. I agree with your logic on the 2-year contract. I think that does make sense because it reminds me of what Seattle did with Stephen Fry last year, right? They extended him for 2 years. And even though I'm a Cleveland owner and I was like I'm always constantly waiting for Stephen Fry to get exit stage left, as it were. He doesn't seem to want to go. And Melia's not quite on the level of a Stephen Fry, but he is a very established keeper. It's also well established that Peter Vermees, the KC coach, loves to rely on veterans. He doesn't trust young players as much as other coaches in the league might. So Melia, I like it. I think I'm going to feel bad for you if it comes out and Pulskamp is starting, game 1 or whatnot. But it's a decent risk. You do need super rare keepers, so.
We just saw Larry pick up a Mara super rare. So I mean, you're giving me crap for Tim Melia. He just picked up a Mara super rare. Granted, he did get it.
Yeah, so our friend, so rare community superstar, friend to all, Andrew Laird. He's a good friend of ours as well, and he just today was showing us he picked up a Jimmy Moore super, which you own one also, but you got this a long time ago. Lairdy bought one today because he feels like it'll help him play in the Cap 240 super rare. Even if Maurer's not playing, at least it gets him cheaply into that division, and he tries to get the 250 points from 4-man lineup. It pays off because I think one threshold, if he hits that, will go over what he paid for the Maurer super rare, right?
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it. And and that's basically saying I'm taking a 0, and so you've got to get that 240 points in your other 4 positions, and so. I've been trying to kick that one around to see how viable that is, and obviously you're going to have to stack some pretty heavy hitters in those 4 spots if you're expecting to hit 240. So let's see, what is that?
And we can talk about that just briefly before we get back to some transfer stuff, which is just cat mode is here, right? And a lot of all the Sorare content creators out there are sort of doing their whole take on cat mode. I'd love to get yours. And like, do you think that taking the 0 goalkeepers can be worth it? I think the general wisdom is that it's no good, because if you have guys, if you would need 65 from each guy, and if you have guys that are getting 65 plus, they should be in other higher priority lineups, not threshold lineups. I think that's how the thinking goes as to why to not take the 0 at goalkeeper. But if you have the cards, why not? And if those cards that you would be putting in aren't going to go to another lineup, then why wouldn't you? Like, I think, you know, what Larry's doing with trying to take the 0 at goalkeeper and put 4 solid guys in that can get 250 is those guys, you know, he's not in a bunch of other super rare divisions right now, so those that might as well put him in the cat mode. What do you think?
Yeah, I can see both sides of it. I think once we get in and actually start playing these contests, we'll get to see if it's a little more viable. Right off the top, though, then I kind of side with you as far as if I've got players that are going to be getting me 60, 65 points, and I want them in lineups that I'm going to potentially win more than just a threshold.
Right.
And so if you've got the gallery, if you've got those excess players just sitting around, then yeah, by all means. But if you do, then you probably have a super rare keeper that you can throw in there at that point too. So if you're one of those owners that just has like random guys that you couldn't fit into other lineups that could still get you 60 to 65, chances are you've probably got an extra starting keeper sitting around too. But no, I could see both sides of it. I think for me, then I would probably go back to sticking those heavy hitters and some potential killer lineups that are gonna, hopefully push for a threshold.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe a little more viable
podium.
in super rare because the super rare threshold is so high, right? It's fixing to be around like a 0.1 ETH, a little over even sometimes depending on the ETH price. So that's worth chasing, because there's a tier 3 that you might win in All-Star might be worth less than that you put one of your good super rares into a high priority lineup in All-Star D3, All-Star Pro, and yet someone else failed in the lineup, and even though your super rare card did pretty good, you ended up only winning a tier 3. Well, that tier 3 might be worth less than the threshold that you would get for the super rare division. So it's all kinds of interesting decisions that Sorare has finally given us. I think it's just so funny. Let me see if I can just call this up. It's so weird, having played this game for almost 2 years now, to look at this page that I'm about to show you and see just the volume of tournaments that there are available to enter as compared to when we first started, and surely when compared to when some of the real OGs first started. I mean, just look at this. We were like 8, maybe 9 contests, taking away the uniques and stuff that I didn't play at the time. We're looking at like 30, 40 contests that you can enter here. I'm sure someone's counting them. What do you think of just the growth and the?
Oh, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, I think I counted it off the other day, and we're pushing somewhere around 35, close to 40. And yeah, it's gotten me to where, and I think I've told you and the guys, like I really want to start expanding my Sorare deck, my Sorare collection outside of MLS, just because there is so much opportunity there. And I'm late to the party, obviously, as far as some of the other regions, but just seeing that many contests has definitely gotten me a little bit more interested in trying to expand and branch out a little bit more.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, you've made the decision because you love MLS, because you focus on MLS so much, just in you have some work with MLS like we've talked about, so like it makes sense. You have definitely I probably did more of like the other non-America divisions at first. Like I was more competitive in Europe in my first year than in my second year. In my second year, I kind of moved towards your direction in terms of focusing more on the America, which means it's been a slow few months for me, and it's about to finally like really heat up. So I'm like, you can probably sense a little of my excitement about all this stuff coming through. I've been putting some Liga MX lineups in the last couple game weeks in America, but bring my MLS boys back. We're so close. We're 3 weeks away, so that's gonna be great. Let's get back to the main topic at hand here, which was that MLS transfer tracker. And one thing is we spent so much time talking about goalkeepers on this show so far as since we established it, because it's so important, right? But let's maybe move away from the touchline and into some other stuff. some other transfers. And is there anyone that jumps out of you as far as outfield players? Maybe Joaquin Torres to Philadelphia. What does that mean to you?
I like it. I mean, Philadelphia is just, at this point, I think they're just stacking up their depth. They are, for me, the best team heading into the 2023 season. Probably the best team last year. Obviously, LAFC won the MLS Cup, but Philadelphia is doing some big things. They brought in several depth
Philadelphia
pieces.
was the best team in the league until about 4 minutes left in extra time when they had to mark Gareth Bale on a corner, and then they were no longer the best team. So.
Yeah, and what they've done in the offseason just shows like they're out for trophies. They've got the bones, they've got the team that's starting 11 that's going to compete game in, game out. And now they've brought in some extra depth pieces that I think, just looking at the schedule, this schedule's probably one of the most congested schedules I've ever seen for an MLS team. We got Leagues Cup with every team playing in it. You've got Open Cup. Several teams are in CONCACAF Champions League.
Yeah, including
Philadelphia. So they've brought in several pieces that are going to they won't have much fall off when they have to reach out to some of their depth. So,
and it's really nice because Torres is a guy. Unfortunately, I don't think Torres. I think Torres was only like borderline SO5 relevant to begin with, probably because Montreal messed with his playing time a lot. But he was really good, right? If you could count on him playing, you knew you could count on him to always be in there and have a chance to bag a goal. For him to go to Philadelphia and now just be kind of like a depth luxury piece when this is going to another early theme of this preseason version of the show that we've been doing. Montreal is going to be bad. How bad is Montreal going to be this year? I mean, they are just absolutely just unloading everyone and not replacing them with anyone. And I just don't feel good about what's coming up for Montreal.
Yeah, it's surprising. They've let go of so many good pieces. Several of their players have said that they're not happy and want out. So yeah, something's not right in Montreal, and might be something for us to watch. I love to obviously stack teams against some of those weaker teams. A couple years ago, it was play all your guys against Cincinnati, play all your guys against Inter Miami. And so Montreal,
you can't count on that anymore, right? Those teams have lifted themselves up out of the doldrums. So now who are the new bottom teams? And I think Montreal is a strong contender.
Yeah, Montreal. We're looking at Houston probably.
Yep.
But yeah, I think
we're looking at DC United. Unfortunately, I think my personal opinion. I just don't see how it can all come together for them. But maybe that one I might be wrong about, but I don't think I am.
Yeah, I think they'll be better than last year. Let's just put it that way. Right, they have nowhere to go but up.
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
They have made some enough moves to, I think, compete this season. So we'll see how that shakes out. But looking at the transfer tracker, one that really kind of caught my eye yesterday was Chicho Arango is out of LAFC.
Sure.
And I think there's been rumors swirling for a little while there, but it's just the season that they had last year, winning MLS Cup, and for him to be such an integral part of that and then be gone this year, just kind of surprising to me because he made such a big impact in a year or less.
Yeah.
And now he's gone, which, looking at their attacking core, they've got several pieces that can step up. They've got Vela, who's getting old, but he can still produce. They've got Dennis Bouanga, who I think that probably helps the most with Arango moving.
We'll look at Chicho's numbers here as you keep talking about him. I mean, look at the scores.
So Bouanga came in middle of last year and just had some up and downs, but showed us some performances that I think we can kind of take a little bit of something away from to say, like, I think he could be a legit one of their top attackers this season. And then I think Opoku, he's a player that's young.
Right.
He's shown some flashes, and now with Arango gone, then I think Opoku could be a sleeper.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
No, you're not the first person that's talked to me about that. In fact, our buddy Fripp, who runs the Sorare USA account on Twitter with so much vital news, and is probably going to be our first guest on the show when we finally do bring someone on. He was like, he and I were talking about Opoku and like, is this the guy that you want to sign now? I personally think LAFC will bring in someone because I don't think they will rely on Quadwo. I think they still like might try to bring someone, but Who
Oh,
do
for
they bring?
sure.
The window's closed. You can only bring in free agents. So my prediction was kind of half jokingly, but I was like, oh, it's all a Kamara time. That time for LA to go bring all a Kamara in.
I was about to
But
say Kai Kamara. So
oh shit,
Kai
that'd
once
be
out
one
of
of the few teams he
Montreal.
hasn't
So
played for, right? He needs to check another notch on
yeah,
the list. Kai for
get
sure. That'd
get
be
the
amazing.
get the yeah get the Kamara duo going up there. So
Yeah, just the two. Kai
that would be
Kamara.
so
Oh,
MLS.
all of Kamara, I think, is probably washed up. Kai Kamara will never be washed up. Kai could score. Kai could be 60 years old and get signed to a 1-year deal and come in and bag 10 goals. I feel
Oh
like
yeah,
so.
just whip some
Yeah,
balls into the box and he'll
yeah,
climb up and get them.
exactly. Kai's an MLS legend. I know you love him. Opoku is interesting. I mean, he's relatively cheap, right? He's selling at 0.16 for a under 23 forward in the America division. I mean, if this guy was going to come in and just do even like 70% of what Chicho was doing in terms of goals, he'd probably be a good buy at this price. The one thing about Chicho I was looking at him just a second ago is, and let's go back to it. And also, by the way, just look really quick at like these matchup scores for the first few games for LA, like bright green to the Galaxy, Portland, New England. So the numbers, he has CONCACAF Champions League as well. Opoku's got to play. I almost want to put a buy. Do we want to put a buy alert on Opoku? Do we give him the official Major League Sorare stamp of approval and tell some people to get out and start buying this guy?
Possibly. I'm still a little bit wait and see until he starts getting consistent starts, and maybe with Arango gone, then he does. But I just want to see how it shakes out beginning of the season before I'm all in on him.
Are you going to be watching LAFC preseason to figure out what they're doing in that? Do you put much stock in preseason lineups and things like that?
Yeah, you can put a little bit of stock, but there's still a lot of coming and going. Still a lot of kind of trialists, so to speak, as far as teams trying to see where certain players fit in. If they can even play at that level, they'll start a random guy in some of these preseason games. So I think as far as you can kind of start to tell, like especially with keepers, there's a handful of keeper jobs that are still up for grabs. But like when I'm seeing when you're seeing Cisniega start for Charlotte, and that kind of gives me the inkling that it's him over Marks.
Right. Especially it wasn't a halftime sub. Pablo played 75 minutes and Mark's got the last 15. We'll see if that switches for the next friendly game. That could change, so we'll see. But
yeah, so take preseason with a grain of salt. There's definitely if you follow the league and you keep up with it, there's definitely a few little nuggets that you can take away from it, but definitely not going to be preseason's end all be all as far as like projected lineups.
Yeah, and it just the Opoku story is another example of like the fact that this transfer window is closed doesn't mean MLS can't bring guys in. Like LAFC can still bring a guy in. It's just that their options are pretty much freaking limited, to quote the GOAT from Adam Sandler's old comedy album back in the day. Although he used a stronger word. It's just like it's one of the Kamaras or who are the free agents out there that they could go get? We don't know. Is there maybe they make a big splash to bring in Haji Wright from Turkey or something like that because the Turkish window is still open. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think Haji's actually on the move from where he's playing, but it's just like it just goes to show like there's it's like we were talking about with Yarborough and what's his name? Their jobs are safer because there's just fewer options to go get someone to replace him now that the window's closed. So I don't know. Opoku, his limited price hasn't really gone up, but I wonder how high his limited price could go if he was to get regular starting and start playing. You see, I mean, let's look at limited here. If we look at his entire history of graph, you can see he was up at like in mid-season last year. He was up at like 0.05, 0.06. He got even almost to 0.06, 0.055. Now you can get him for 0.01. I mean, that's one thing I always do when I'm looking at a guy like, do I want to buy this guy, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, if I'm worried about like what his price might get to or what kind of like return on the investment I might be able to get, it's like, well, what has he gone for in the past? So like we know he's capable of getting up this high in the 0.05s.
Right.
So like, and then
there
was another little mini run probably when like Vela was hurt and he started getting a couple plays, right? One of Vela's many injuries and whatnot. So just And then he probably Bale, then he starts getting phased out when Chicho started dominating and Bale was getting in the mix as well. So you can sort of see that there, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
no,
I'm almost ready to give Quadquo the stamp of approval here now that I've looked a little deeper into it. And I would not have said that at the beginning of this episode. So
I'm fine with
the
that.
progress
Yeah,
we're being made here.
I'm
All right.
good with I'm good.
I'm gonna
I'm good with
do. Should we do
Opoku.
an official banner? This is a live update by Quad. Whoa, Opoku. So this is boom. There it is. It's on the banner. We have officially given our Major League Sorare stamp of approval to Opoku. I think it's going to be bad news if they bring someone in. I would do some research on that. Maybe check the Twitter streets and the Google News app and things like that. See if you can find anything. But I like the kid.
Yeah, I'm good with him. I like how you broke it down there too, as far as looking at the price graph, because that does show you, hey, he was 0.05 at one point, and of course, prices are going up and down constantly. Things are constantly changing based on the price of ETH. But when you can look at that, and for a guy that's 21, 22 years old, and say he was this price at one point, he's not even starting, and now he's a fraction of that, then yeah, that could be a sign to say, hey, I go ahead and stock up and have some on hand for when he does start to get consistent starts, when he is consistently producing and people are starting to flock to him. And then, hey, you've got yourself a handful of Opokus on hand that you can either flip or play. And so
Right.
I like that. I like that. And I think it's good for people to recognize some of the tools that our friends over at Sorare Data do have there to really just help your game grow.
The good people of Sorare Data, of course. Let's real quick before we get out of here. We're almost out of time, but let's flip the other side of that transfer, because I think that's an interesting story as well. And that is the shipping out of Chicho Arango, which I'll be honest, I don't get. I never have gotten why this guy couldn't get more love in LA. It seemed like he was the subject of transfer rumors from the moment he got there. And I know the fans all loved him. You could see that the fans loved him playing for their club. But for some reason, front office just never seemed fully married to this guy. And I don't know what it was. I do think that there's some danger here. I want to ask you, if you were holding a Chicho before this move, he went to Pachuca in Liga MX. So he's still in the America division. He's still projecting to be, he might get more playing time with Pachuca than he got with LAFC, but he's not as much part of a super team as he was with LAFC. So if you look at his scores, you see, if I go L40 here, you see a decisive score average of 47.3. So he's getting, like, most guys are under 40 there, even a lot of forwards are. And his AA is only 4.2. I mean, he's pretty goal dependent, but and decisive dependent. But I mean, look at this. Much like Driussi, he had a long streak of there's 4 in a row. He had a game with a yellow, but then another 3 decisives in a row, including a triple, a double. I mean, he was banging home the decisives, and he was great for SO5 at that time. Can he do the same with Pachuca? Are you buying or selling on Arango going to Liga MX?
I love the Arango. I mean, he was such a good, it's kind of like that fox in the box forward that just, if you get the ball into him, he's always going to make something happen. I can't say I know enough about Pachuca's style of play to really champion him to say he's going to keep going with them. But I would say, just knowing Arango and how good he is as far as just pure goal scorer, then hey, I'd be fine with keeping him as long as you're still getting that utility out of him in Mexico. And so for me personally, I would probably sell him because I want a little bit more MLS exposure. And
even though you said you wanted to branch out from MLS, and now you're getting rid of guys as soon as they get transferred out of the league.
Yeah, you're calling me out here, but you're calling me out. I think it seems like he's probably a premier forward. If I was holding him, he'd probably be one of my go-to forwards. And so for MLS purposes, and yeah, I might want to try to use that 0.35 ETH and put it towards somebody that I know a little bit more about as far as week in, week out matchups that they're going to be playing against in MLS.
Here's the Pachuca page. You can see in Pachuca's last 40, they don't have, Chicho scored a lot more than 7 goals and 2 assists in his last 40. So you'd think that there'd be a chance for him. I know Pachuca, I can say that they play with an open style. Liga MX, I think, is a lower scoring type of league. But one way I was describing it to someone earlier this week was like, it's a lower scoring league in general, but dominant strikers still find a way to get their goals. And I'm thinking about Gignac. I'm thinking about Jona Rodriguez. I'm thinking about Julio Furch when he gets to play. So like, I wouldn't necessarily think, oh, the move from MLS to Liga MX is bad. So I do just wonder that even with an open, free-flowing style that Pachuca may have, I'm a little worried about just the fact that like he's not playing with Vela. He's not playing with like the insane midfield that LAFC
supporting
had.
cast.
Yeah, exactly. The supporting cast around him. He's not playing with a team that's dominating the league and going out to win the supporter shield by the record number of points and things like that. So I don't know. I think as much as I love Arango as a fan, I love watching him play because he plays with so much passion. I think we might have to do this. I'm going to go ahead and give it the old Major League So Rare. Sell Christian Arango. It's time. I'm saying this so emphatically because I was talking to someone on Discord earlier this week, and I was like, it's probably a neutral move. It's not that big a deal. I don't think you need to like run away from him or anything like that. But the more I thought about it, the more I've dug in, I just think Chicho, like, he just can't, he doesn't get the AA, and he can't match the goal scoring that he got with the supporting cast that he had compared to what he will have now. So I'm going to say sell, and before it's too late. What do you think? Is that fair?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. All right. So the last thing I want to do, I roasted you for your Melia purchase, and I think that I need turnabout's fair play, right? And we've also been agreeing a ton on this episode. So let's get a little conflict in the mix here. I want you, because I've made some purchases recently that maybe some could call questionable, who knows? But I want you to roast my recent pickups because I just can't support Amelia pickup. I know you're for it, but I'm against it. And I hope it works out for you because you're my friend. But if I was a betting man, I would be betting against it. So here's my most recent few pickups. I've been looking for some depth at super rare defender. So I bought Eric Godoy of I'm not even gonna like pre-justify this. I just want you to tell me, look, I sometimes do this, like I call this the So Rare last 8 challenge, and I'm just like, what are the last 8 cards that someone bought? Let's look at that. And I think it kind of like tells a little bit of a tale, unless you're someone that just is buying cards like constantly all the time. But
oh boy,
my last 8 challenge has 4 super rare defenders.
Yeah, I see one right off the bat.
Possibly questionable midfield pickup. You tell me, who do you want to roast the most there?
I see one right off the bat. Pizarro, the clown, baby.
Rodolfo the clown, man. I had to get it. I just something. I don't know if I was drunk or something, but something was telling me that Pizarro was the dude to pick up. There was a pretty cheap super rare. I think I got it for like 0.118 or something like that. So
for the right price, I could see the logic there. Honestly, like Pozuelo hasn't re-signed with Miami.
No,
yet.
Roast me. I want you to roast me. Tell me he's horrible. Don't tell me
he's been. I've owned him for a long time, and he was just such a hard player to have. Just really pedestrian results, game in, game out. Might have turned up with a good score here and there, but as long as I owned him, I mean, you could pull up his scores on data, but it was rough going. I'd like to say for you that things are going to change, but man, it's rough sledding. Good luck with that one.
I mean, he's back in Miami after he was horrible in Miami as a DP the first year he went there, and I made fun of him all the time. I don't know why I ended up owning this card. He went back to Liga MX on sort of like a loan deal last year. Couldn't really catch on in Liga MX, but he did. Got a few decisives. He couldn't crack the starting 11, so tons of sub appearances. I don't know.
You're hitting those nasty yellow colors.
Yeah, it's
yellow and orange.
I need more starts here, but I don't know. I just felt like taking a flyer on the boy. I don't know what I don't know what possessed me. I probably would. I'm going to admit that if I could go back to what was it? I'll just cancel this.
Did you pick that up when you were in Mexico or what? Were you just making moves when you were?
It was 4 days ago. I had an itchy trigger. It was one of those days where those days where you're just like, I'm buying a So Rare card. Like, in the next couple hours, one way or another, I'm buying. So I was going to spend the money on something, and I just started like wishful thinking, like, oh, maybe Pizarro could be good. I started looking up Phil Neville quotes about Pizarro's attitude in preseason camp, and they're happy to have him back. And Pozuelo isn't officially signed right yet with Miami, and
right.
just
Not
my
hopefully
finest
you'll be
hour,
seeing
but I had to
him
do it.
make that clown face a few times this season.
I hope so. Maybe he'll be good for cap mode, cap 220 super rare, something like that. Who knows? But yeah, that's a roast worthy pickup. And sometimes you make mistakes in so rare, and you just hope they work out. I am actively trying to sell my Pizarro immediately after buying it, though. I will admit that.
Yes.
So,
those are the ones that you love. You're like, what the hell did I do? Instantly put them back on the
what
market.
the hell was I thinking? Yeah. So, what can I say? But it's always fun, and that's kind of what. Like, that's part of the mental part of the game. Is like mental toughness, right? Like if you're someone who really likes to engage with so rare, and you're like, like I haven't bought a card in a week, like I just gotta buy a freaking card. Like you need the mental toughness to either A, make sure it's like a good card and not some clown like Pizarro, or B, like just hold back. Don't spend the ETH. Wait for a better opportunity. So, have a plan
Right.
for freaking sake. But I don't know. I just, I'm always looking. One big thing for me this year is increasing my super rare depth and like trying to like have a lot of options. So we'll see. We'll see how that works out. I'm not relying on Pizarro as in like a main lineup, though. I will definitely admit that.
Yeah. I know you were wanting me to roast you, but I do like some of those other pickups that I saw there. Godoy, I think he's pretty useful as a center back. He's in Argentina now, right?
Yeah, so Godoy, I'm gonna do the cardinal sin of touting here and just pump my own guys, and we will give the stamp of approval to old Eric Godoy, because I bought this guy. I think he's legit. I just think so. This is a guy who put a pretty decent underlying stats when he would play for Vancouver Whitecaps last couple of years, but he just couldn't really like work his way into like becoming all the time starter. And I don't know why didn't Godoy really catch on in Vancouver? What do you think?
Vancouver has surprisingly good bit of center back depth between Blackman, Veselinovic.
You can see there's his Vancouver numbers are here, right? I just kind of highlighted, and it's green numbers when he's getting in there, right? And if you like look at the games he actually played, we're looking at, he got the one game where he had negative AA, he had a decisive to make up for it. And then here's a game with 19 AA. Here's a game with 23, a decisive plus 10, another 10 AA. So he was like doing things. So he left Vancouver and he's now with Belgrano in Argentina. And his first game for Belgrano, he delivered 57 points, 21 AA, 22 AA with a yellow card in a 0-0 against Racing Club, who's one of the best clubs in Argentina. So I one of my friends, one of our old DraftKings friends, Patrick Go, I like to scout out South American leagues with him because he's so sharp in that area, and I rely on his advice a lot. And he had a few Godoys, and I was like, I was looking for cards, and I was like, I found Godoy in these rankings, and I was like, man, this guy looks pretty good. And so I consulted with Luis, and he's like, yeah, man, if you got the right price, I would give him the stamp of approval. So the thing is, I got this guy. So this was kind of a funny story in that there was a Godoy super rare poster for like 0.21. I was like, I like what I'm seeing, but I don't want to pay that much. That's a little bit too much. In fact, it might be this one right here that's now been raised to 0.24, but he was only selling for like under 0.1 before he had his first start for Belgrano. And then so what I did this old trick where you go find someone who won the card as a prize and just make them an offer, even if it's not for sale. And I was able to
get rid of it quick.
Yeah. So this guy had like a 0.21 listing on Godoy, and I offered like 0.175, and he rejected and like he was counter offering with me, trying to get me to like 0.19, 0.2, and I was just like, it's not where I'm going. I want to go the other way. So then I found this other owner who like had a Godoy and was just in a pretty much dead account that hadn't bought any new cards for months and months. And this doesn't always work because a lot of times those people never check their messages is the big problem. But I found I offered 0.125, which, probably even that was a little bit more than I wanted to pay, but it came through. So to the person who was like hardballing me over just a few fractions of an ETH or at the 0.175-ish level, you lost out on a sale, and I got it for actually much cheaper than I was planning to. So
Love it.
bully for me on that one. But yeah, I like Adoy, and I'm not saying you go buy a super rare, but look at the rare. Just the rare is so cheap that it's like that's why I put the stamp of approval on him, because for a starting center back in a league that's very low scoring, and like he's going to get a lot of clean sheets in my opinion, for under 0.03, it's a pretty nice move. I would be recommending
like
a Godoy for anyone who's looking to add a rare defender.
I think I'm sold. I might go grab one after you hop off
yes
here.
yes okay.
Start branching out, like I said.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and we've said before, and I'm going to continue to say it, the way to win an America division, you stack MLS attackers and Argentinian defenders, and you will be doing very well. So that's my speech, and you'll probably hear it again. But thank you so much to everybody who stuck with us. We're running a little long. We try to keep it like a little under 40 minutes. We went 45 here. So I'll give you a chance to say a last word, Schuyler.
Yeah, thanks again for everybody shooting us messages on YouTube, Twitter, whatever. It's encouraging and fun to engage with everybody. I know Daniel and I talked about trying to hit on some of those questions. Maybe we can get to them on the next show.
Yeah, we'll do. We've been active. We've been like, if you comment on our videos, we will answer you for sure, and we will do like a viewer question segment on the show next episode, no doubt.
Absolutely. But yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, let's keep this thing moving. I think we're recording once every week, Wednesday, Thursday. So keep an eye out. And if you have any questions before the next show, then reach out.
Thanks, everybody. Vamos
Thanks,
MLS.